Let's begin our second slide on policy analysis. Now, here we've gone through kind of full circle around decision making, coming up with policy types, the work through the process of the alternative selection stage in the policy process. Now, policy analysis and policy analysts themselves, the folks who actually do this for work, um, live in this world of decision making, understanding data to help us make better decisions and to determine what to do about public problems. And so, in this set of slides, we're going to get into um, who these people are and kind of what they do. There's a few different roles for someone who may want to be a policy analyst. One is the objective technician, someone who is totally neutral, um, predicts outcomes, avoids advocacy. You would often have this type of policy analyst working in a government agency, right? Where you have this kind of, you want clear data, you want to have data that is not biased in any sort of sense, um, and that is neutral when it comes to, again, the sort of policy lean or policy recommendation that the analyst might come up with, right? So you're predicting outcomes and avoiding advocacy. The next step is a client's advocate. The next type is a client's advocate. And you are doing work for a particular client. So you're often particularly, maybe you are a contracted or specialist working in a particular area at some sort of firm, and you are advocating for the client's position. So you are looking at data that it helps make your client's case for a particular policy type or policy decision or policy tool or whatever it may be, right? You're using evidence strategically to say that your policy preference or your policy recommendation is the best one. But in reality, it may not be, but it is in the best interest of the client that you're being paid by. The next one is issue advocate. And so this is where you are looking at fundamental or philosophical orientations, and you are a policy actor trying to push goals, right? Trying to make claims about a policy preference that is in the interest of an overarching activity that you seek to accomplish, right? So maybe you are a issue advocate for climate change, right? And so you're going to push policies that identify mitigation strategies to address real climate change issues. And you're going to highlight the ones that achieve the goals of the largest carbon reduction, right? While potentially not highlighting ones that achieve lower levels of carbon production. You're going to highlight science that says that this is a massive problem in this particular area, right? And not highlight the science or not highlight information or studies that maybe go against your particular perspective here. Climate change is a loaded one to throw in there for the example, and I did that on purpose because it is such one that's in the cultural conversations around a lot of things, and I'm pressing it to push a point. There's this established path when it comes to policy analysis. It's Bardak's eightfold path. Define the problem, assemble evidence, construct the alternatives, select the criteria, look at the outcomes, deal with the trade-offs for those outcomes, and then decide what course of action or what policy to recommend, and then tell your story. So this is basically like that kind of 6 steps of rational comprehensive approach, right? You are having these alternative policies. You are creating criteria that are important. You are weighting those, and you are kind of looking at the outcomes and confronting the trade-offs of doing one thing over another thing. Two logics of public policy analysis. Economic rationality, transparent assumptions, you're comparing alternatives systematically. Political rationality, incentive-driven, selective use of data, and you're considering feasibility of actually making something happen given a political environment, right? So there's this kind of analyst approach, right, where you have, all right, I'm going to look at the data, I'm going to use this eightfold path, I'm going to use a rational comprehensive approach to it as much as possible, and say these are the courses of actions that we should take. On the other side of things, the political policymakers have this kind of political rationality of, okay, you may have the best possible solution over there, Mr. Analyst, but over here in the Senate or over here in the House, I have to deal with the reality that trying to do something like that is going to butt up against immediate opposition from a majority of members or something like that, right? So what is something that is feasible for me to do given this particular political environment? And that's that political rationality. It's often why we don't get the most optimal policies, right? Because that does come up against the realities of politics. Both of these views are valid, right? When it comes to deciding what you're going to do, you have to understand these kind of notions of the irrational notions of policy actions, right? Political realities do matter. Again, we are in a democracy, so they certainly matter. But good analysis is going to bring rigor, right? Blend that rigor with context. It's going to say, this policy solution is going to work within this context based on all of this information. Politics does explain these irrational outcomes, these bad policies that we get, policies that don't do as much as we had hoped they would do. It also informs the institutional design, the organizations that we create and the organizations in which we operate. So I want you to look at something. It's a video that I posted, and it's about the Wild Horses and Burros Act of 1972. And we are looking at, I'm throwing something out there that's kind of you probably don't think about very often, and that is the wild horse population, the overpopulation on public lands out here in the West. It's a fun video to watch. It's interesting, and it really shows that this notion of a public problem that we tried to solve, and it's not been solved, and it continues to be problematic. And there are a few alternatives that we can develop and think about. And you have these costs here. So I want you to watch it. I'll post it in Canvas, and you can link here on the video. And then do this on your own to weigh these costs and benefits of it. And then think about it as you work on your paper, right? What are the costs and benefits of a particular course of action? What was the analysis that was taken as they decided what to do for your particular policy area? Thanks.